Hi, my name is Mason Phillips-Cary, and this is my online introductions for ACTE 699.5 for the fall 2023 semester. So a little bit about me. I do teach at the School District of Lancaster. I teach Chem and IB Chem for both the standard level and higher level. This is my second to last course in the Integrative STEM Curriculum Assessment and Teaching Masters that I'm going for, which means I only have two more classes left. I wish this was my last semester, but we have to go one more to get that one last course in. And thinking about this lovely course and what possibly my research is going to be in, I either want to do two things. They either involve the NGSS type of format with either modeling or communicating what content has basically been learned in the classroom and applying that to either modeling or communicating. And then the other thing that I want to do is possibly just the whole process altogether with the gather, reason, communicate, and how effectively it pulls aspects of the content that was learned in the class to applications of what the students are going to know and display to learn through their lab basics through a gather, reason, communicate type of format. So some of the lovely hobbies that I like to do is I love being outside. In the summertime, I love to canoe and kayak or be on a nice hike. Even in these lovely cool fall days, I love going on a really good hike just to decompress and connect with nature. Besides those, I really like to read and go to the local coffee shops that are around here in Lancaster. But if none of those things can be great, I also love to just binge watch the new Netflix show that comes out on Netflix as a good pastime to decompress and de-stress from a lovely long school day. So let's dive into these readings. The first question that was asked of us is what stages would be most difficult, and this is related to the Mills reading that we had to read. So for me, I'm pretty sure like the most difficult part in this lovely action research process is the data collection. Granted, I know that we have all of these things like grades and formative assessments and exit tickets and all of that, but what are you collecting data for? Are you going to analyze it quantitatively? Are you going to analyze it quantitatively? Or maybe you're going to do a little bit of both. What are we measuring here? How are we going to ensure with the data that we've collected that the independent variable is going to affect the dependent variable? And then once you have collected all of this data, how are we actually just showing and displaying these variables out of the data analysis and the conclusion phase that we're going to have and the actions that we're going to take from the data that we've collected? So for me, it's like a mixture of both the data collection aspect of it and then also the data analyst part or the analysis of the data, essentially, of like how are we going to manipulate and use this data in order to make sure that we're connecting to those quantitative or qualitative aspects with the independent and dependent variable. So action research as a daily practice. So what many things am I going to possibly struggle with? So knowing that action research is a process that can be undertaken without having a negative impact on your personal and professional life. For me, I am a very much an overthinker and a doer and just attack and go type of person. And so for me, I would know that like I already have a lot on my plate and this feels like there's an additional thing to do, even though we were told in this reading that it's not an additional thing to do. We do this on a daily basis. We formatively assess our students and then immediately tweak in order to meet the students' needs. However, trying to make sure that I'm developing those reflective practices from the research that we're conducting is going to be a little new challenge for me. It's going to be something that I haven't done before, and it'll be something that's brand new because we collect data and we analyze that data and we attack, but communicating that on a forum is something a little bit different for me. So taking that time and aspect to actually dive in and like develop that paper-like form to show that action research in process is going to be a little bit like possibly to impact on my professional life or my personal life a little bit. But the separation of the two, I don't see yet. Another thing that probably is going to be an obstacle is asking my professional colleagues for the support in order to do this. I have trouble being very fluid when I am struggling with any type of work dynamic. Usually when I'm overwhelmed and stressed, I immediately just like try to attack it with a plan myself. But I need to start knowing that teaching is a collaborative process, and that research is a collaborative process, and that we need to rely on other people in order to see if something's going to be successful, or if something's going to work, or if something is just going to completely flop in your face. So realizing that seeking that help is not a bad thing, and that you need to do this because it's kind of given with teaching as a collaborative process, and knowing that research is based off of things that have been done before and the collaborations with others. So realizing that you need to have those professional supports there in order to have a really conductive and well-rounded research in itself is super important. So those are my two obstacles that I'm going to try to challenge myself this semester going forward, to ask those questions and make sure that I have a really good balance so it's not going to affect my personal or professional life. The last part that we were asked to complete is from the Ference reading, and it's about the stories from the field, and the resonation that I had with this story is very, very prominent within my district with Rebecca Winsnicki from Lowell, Massachusetts. She teaches in a very low-income district where students struggle to learn the English language, and oftentimes during this, teachers at my school often ask how we can meet the needs of our English language learners in a way that will allow them to learn English. Now, the stories are very different because she's talking about like 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and I teach relatively 10th all the way to 12th grade. So even though the age is different, essentially like the dynamics of what were happening within those districts are very, very prominent in kind of what we do in the school district of Lancaster, because we want to make sure that those needs of all the L students are met. So they found out if they focused on the individual student and met their needs, they would be able to learn English. And this was due to part of having conference with both the students and knowing what the students were comfortable with, but also communicating with the parents as well. And see, a unique thing that we do at the district is we test those students daily. We talk to those students daily. And as we get to know our L's within our classroom, because they're mixed in sometimes with high achieving students who already know English, is having conferences with those students and spending it roughly a little bit of time out of your lesson if they are practicing or doing something that involves reading, assisting them to where their needs are met, and then also communicating with the student what they feel more comfortable doing. Maybe a student likes models. Maybe a student really likes to process things with the breakdown of the sentence. And sometimes the student won't even tell you that, the parents will. So just making sure that like you have a full range of communication to best assist your students. And that's why the story really resonated with me, because essentially that's what the school district of Lancaster does. And yes, we are a city-based school. We have a lot of low-income-based students that arrive at my school, but nothing can be done without the process of making sure that everyone is on board. We need to make sure that the student's on board. The student wants to be engaged. The student wants to learn English. We need to make sure that we are trying to reach aspects, whether it's going to another colleague for supports, whether it's going to the parents for supports. We need to make sure that we're cross-lateral and essentially cover all our bases to make sure that the students in themselves are able to learn English in a very type of dynamic and forum. So this is why this story from Rebecca Winsnicki was so inspiring and just like resonated with me so much, because it's essentially what we do as every teacher in the school district of Lancaster. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. If you could please comment down below and let me know which story resonated with you or what your obstacles were, that would be great. Thanks, and I'll see you guys next week.